In your book, you say something, your new book, maybe you should talk to someone. You say something that really surprised me, which is that sometimes when someone changes, those around them will sabotage them and basically get in the way of that change because it changes the dynamic that that relationship has with a person. And I mean, we see this generally when someone becomes successful, for example, their friends from their hometown might be a little bit resistant because they want to keep the dynamics the way that they are. But the examples that you talk about in the book about, like, you know, someone gets over their alcohol addiction and then a friend might sabotage them by, I don't know, giving them alcohol or taking them to a bar.
Yeah.
Were really, really striking.
Yeah, that happened with Charlotte in the book when she realized that her drinking was a problem. She was the young woman who's in her 20s and was dating, and she realized that she drinks too much and it's really affecting her life and her functioning. And so she decided that she was going to do something about that. And then when she was having a birthday party and her friend said, "Oh, let's do it at this bar." And she said, "No, I'd rather do it at this other place because I don't want to be in that environment." And her friends were like, "You're no fun anymore. And you don't come out with us anymore." But the real issue is that she was holding up a mirror without realizing it to her friends because they were saying, "Oh, maybe we aren't drinking in a healthy way." And they didn't want to look at that. So if they could get her to go back to the old way, we see this in couples a lot. When one person decides they're going to get healthy in a certain way, like, I'm going to start exercising, and the person starts exercising, and the other person doesn't exercise at all, and they're really unhealthy. And that person says, "Why do you get up early and go to the gym? You're no fun anymore. You know, you're obsessed with exercise," when they're not. They're just going to the gym in a normal way. And really, they're feeling threatened. They're like, you know, this is changing the dynamic between us because we used to be both unfit, and now my partner's looking really healthy and hot. And now it's really clear that I'm not really healthy and I don't look as good as I could look. And maybe I'm going to have to do this, and they don't really want to. They're resistant to doing that. And the partner's not asking them to go to the gym. They're saying, "I'm going to the gym. You do what you want." But there's this implicit pressure of, I have to look at myself. That's why people, again, don't come to therapy, is because I'm going to have to look at myself and maybe make some changes that are healthier. And I'm not sure I'm ready to do that yet. And I write in the book about the stages of change because I think it's so important that people understand that New Year's resolutions, for example, don't often work because people think, I just decide this thing, I have this goal, I'm going to do it, and I either succeed or I fail. And that's just not true. There are these stages that people go through, and it starts with pre-contemplation, where you don't even know you're thinking of making a change. And that's usually like if your partner starts exercising, you didn't realize that maybe in the back of your mind that was something you had been thinking about but weren't ready to deal with. Contemplation is, you know, you're thinking about making a change, but you're not ready to do it yet. That's usually when people come to therapy. They're thinking about it, but they're not really ready. Preparation is when you start to get ready. You're preparing. You're maybe getting a gym membership, or you're taking an anger management class, or whatever you're doing. And then action is when you put the change, and it might also be like you're preparing to break up with someone who's not good for you. So you're thinking about, how am I going to do this? What are the logistics of this? And then action is you actually do the thing. You break up, you go to the gym, you change jobs, you apply for a job that you always wanted, you go back to grad school, you do the thing you wanted to do. But then the next stage is the most important stage, which is maintenance. And maintenance is, it's not like you're on this upward trajectory and if you go off the trajectory, then you failed. It's not like that. Maintenance is, how does this become more habitual in my life? So let's use the breakup example. You broke up with this person, you're having a really bad day, you're feeling really lonely, you called them at midnight, or you texted them at midnight because, I don't know, and so now you say, I better get back in a relationship. I guess I'm back in a relationship with them. No. You slipped off. It's okay. Then you say, you know what? I was feeling really lonely. I didn't know how to cope with it. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to have an extra session. I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to watch a TV show that I like. I'm going to read a book that I like. It will feel different in the morning. Next time, that's what I'm going to do. And so you have to get used to, we talked about the familiar earlier, about going toward familiar partners. Making a change is really hard because we're changing something that was familiar to us. It's like when I was in therapy, my therapist said, you remind me of this cartoon, and it's of a prisoner shaking the bars, desperately trying to get out. But on the right and the left, it's open, no bars. So that's us, where we think, I would like to make a change, but I'm really afraid of going outside. I'm more comfortable being in jail in this miserable situation than knowing that I have freedom, but I have to change. I'm going to have to take responsibility for my life if I walk around those bars. And so I think with change, it's really about, how do I give myself self-compassion when I have trouble making the change, and help myself get back on track? And what kind of support do I need? People think if I beat myself up, if I self-flagellate, if I tell myself I'm awful and I'm a failure, I'm going to get back on track because that's going to help me. No, it's not going to help you. In the short term, it might help you a little bit, but what's really going to help you is to have self-compassion, because that actually gives you more accountability. You're more able to say to yourself, okay, let me think about what I can do differently. It's kind of like if your kid comes home from school and says, I did really badly, I failed this test. Are you going to scream at them? Is that going to help them do better on the next test? Or are you going to say, let's sit down and figure this out? What do you think happened here? And your kid might say, I didn't really understand it and I didn't get help. Or your kid might really be honest and say, I didn't study enough. So we can say, okay, well, what can you do next time? Let's kind of think about, can you make a schedule? Do you need to study with a study partner? What do you need to do? That's what helps people make long-term change.
Is that the wise compassion that you spoke about versus the sort of idiot compassion, which you talk about as well?
Idiot compassion is what we tend to do with our friends. So your friend says, listen to what my partner, my coworker, my sibling, my parents did or said. And we say, yeah, they're wrong. You're right. How dare they? Because we're just validating their perspective. And like we were talking about in my TED Talk, there are many different versions of a story, all of which are true. So you're only getting one narrow perspective when you're hearing one person's perspective. That's why couples therapy is so great, because I can hear the same incident told by two different people who were there, both of whom are telling the absolute truth of their experience, but they're leaving out the other person's experience. And that's where things get dangerous. So in idiot compassion, we don't consider what the other person's perspective might be when our friend is telling us something. We just back up our friend. But they're not learning anything from that experience. And when you hear them over and over, you kind of get a sense that maybe they're doing something. Like an example would be, your friend keeps getting broken up with. And we can say, yes, these men are jerks. They're terrible. You deserve better. Or we can say, I think that sometimes you're a little bit too possessive early on in the relationship. And I think they start to feel overwhelmed and then they break up with you. But if you could just hold your anxiety a little bit more at the beginning of the relationship and not be so overwhelming to them, that you might develop something different the next time. That would be wise compassion. That's what they're going to hear in therapy. So in therapy, we hold up a mirror to them and help them to see something about their role in the situation that maybe they haven't been willing or able to see. And so we think we're being a good friend by offering idiot compassion, but we're not actually helping our friends. And that's where therapy, I think, can be really helpful.